On our wedding night, I happily drank the wine Cain Liebert offered me and felt my strength leave me in an instant. As I collapsed limply on the bed, Cain remained expressionless. He put down his glass and reached for my clothes. The tips of his fingers were icy, leaving me shivering. Thinking he was about to consummate our marriage, I did not resist, even giggling.
Do you have to be so impatient? I'm finally marrying you.
Cain glanced at me but quickly looked away in guilt as he tore my clothes open. I couldn't help flushing as I felt the coolness of my chest. Before embarrassment sank in, however, I watched as he drew out a small dagger. The romantic atmosphere seemed to vanish instantly as my smile stiffened, and sweat started trickling down my brow. I was all too familiar with that dagger. It pierced my chest 9 times before. I grabbed Cain's hand and tried to push myself up right then, but couldn't find the strength. All I could do was exclaim in panic.
What are you doing, Cain?
His hand stiffened. Pursing his lips, he lowered his eyes to hide the conflict in his gaze.
Yvette's sick again. I need your Icon to save her.
My fingers clenched around his wrist as I couldn't help exclaiming, I've already saved her 9 times! Is she really that frail? What illness could it be that she needs my Icon to live? Cain easily freed himself, frowning as he quietly said,
It's urgent. I will explain it to you when I save her. I know I'm doing you an injustice. But don't worry, I won't bother with her anymore after this. Once I'm back, I'll marry you again.
Seeing that he was determined, I cried out right then. I'm not saying no, Cain, but I only have 10 drops of Icor, and you already took 9. I'll die if you take the last drop too.
You don't have to be afraid.
He told me instead.
And don't try to fool me. I know how precious Icor is to members of the Wisteria clan. Be good now. This is the last time.
He leaned down, kissing my forehead before getting to his feet. His eyes widened slightly as he looked at my chest. It was riddled with holes, a gruesome sight of new cuts overlapping with old. On top of that, the wound from the last time he stabbed me had yet to heal. As if in pain, he brushed his fingers over my skin as tears welled up in his eyes and breathed quietly.
I know you've suffered for your loyalty to me, but I owe her. I'll come back to you and love you when I've repaid her.
Flustered, I blinked even as I begged with a quivering tone. I really can't give it to you or it would kill me. I'm not lying. The icy touch of his dagger plunged through my chest before I could finish. It formed on my brow as Cain extracted the last drop of Icor.
I promise this is the last. Just give me time and we can do this again.
As he put away my icon and started to leave, I withstood the agony in my heart and caught his sleeve with the last ounce of strength I had, breathing feebly. Give it back to me now or I'm really going to die. Even so, Cain never once looked at me as he hurried outside, mumbling to himself.
I owe Yvette. I have to repay her favor.
His voice faded into the distance while I lay immobile, too hurt to move. As I felt my heart wilting, all I could think about was this. If Cain was using my Icor to repay Yvette's favor, what about what he owed me? What would he repay me with? I passed out for the longest time. The agony of having my Icon being taken out 9 times was actually bearable. But this time, I felt like my life would be claimed too. As the last Wisteria in existence, the blood in my heart was endlessly pure and a miracle essence to the rest of the world. It was capable of even bringing the dead back to life. But I had only 10 drops. And with the 10 drops all taken, I was now dying. Suddenly, I had a dream of the moment I first met Cain decades ago. It had already been centuries since I was taken in by Olympus when he was initiated. We felt a mutual attraction after getting acquainted, and fell in love.
Crystal, you have a bleeding heart. Too innocent, too trusting. One day that man will hurt you deeply.
Mom, he's not like that.
I hope you're right.
That was, until I overheard someone in Olympus saying that they had taken me in just so they could claim my Icarist when they needed it.
That pure little heart of hers is such an exquisite prize.
Now, let us think. What delightful things should we do with her heart's blood?
I couldn't believe it until Cain came at me with a dagger for the first time, thrusting it into my heart.
I have to save her. It's just 1 drop. It's nothing to you, but I have no choice. Yvette and I grew up together. She gave up eternity for me. While I stayed the same, she had to watch the years steal her youth away. Crystal, forgive me. I can't abandon her.
She had given him a potion bestowed upon her by a sage so that he could gain transcendence and join Olympus, while she was left shackled by mortality. Caught in disbelief, I had demanded at the time.
So you wooed me just for my Icard?
Yes. But I also truly fell in love with you. There's no way I can have a relationship with Yvette either. All I feel is Owen. Can you understand where I'm coming from, Crystal?
And because I had kept telling myself that, my chest was eventually riddled with holes, as Kane would repeatedly take my iron for the strangest reasons. Being down by a carriage, her husband beat her half to death, and she almost killed herself after her husband died. There were times when I found the romantic relationships of mortals incomprehensible. If she really loved someone so much, how were they able to marry someone else? However, looking at it from another perspective, it was moving how loyal they were. Nonetheless, it was after the 9th time Kane stabbed my heart that he proposed marriage. I have heard the sisters of my court saying women who really fell in love were fools. However, I remembered I was a fool ever since I fell for Kane. So I accepted his proposal. And now, Olympus banished, with my icon drained dry, my spiritual power had mostly diminished, leaving me of no use to them. When I left, I could hear my peers laughing at me.
Just look at her. Even her hair has gone white. She's not going to last a few years.
How much more foolish can she get? Kane has already deceived her to no end, but she still agreed to marry him. And now, he ran away on their wedding night, thinking of her last drop of Iracon. That said, he probably didn't know he wouldn't be that cold otherwise.
Who could tell? All men are the same. Only fools like Crystal Woods would believe in nonsense like love.
As I headed down the stairs, their voices faded into the distance until I couldn't hear them at all. I never once looked back, because I was too ashamed to do so, remembering my mother's last words.
You're the last of the Wisterias. You must find good stock to revitalize the bloodline.
The memory alone could make me hide. Not only did I fail to revitalize the bloodline, I was going to die. I had failed my mother, and the Wisteria clan even more. I wanted to see Elun. Kane had stolen my 10 drops of Icrit and given them to Yvel. In other words, I had saved Yvel's life 10 times without even knowing what she looked like. That was the first time I saw her, a woman in her 40s taking out the laundry. She had wrinkles lining the corner of her eyes, dressed in tweed clothes. She looked ordinary, however, she was also brimming with vigor, and there was no hint that death was looming for her. My icon must have worked wonders. I stood outside, watching for a long while until I saw Kane stepping out of the cottage. Kane dressed in all white, there was a smile on his impossibly handsome face as he dropped to a crouch.
I'll do it. You get some rest.
No, you don't know this stuff. You rest. I'll cook after I'm done here.
I should go soon. Crystal's still waiting for me.
Hearing that, Yvette dropped the laundry with a splash in the bucket and exclaimed in panic. Kane gently withdrew his hand from her grasp and lowered his gaze.
Why? It's just been a few days. What's the hurry?
I must go. This is the last time we'll see each other. I have an obligation to do right by her, after I marry her.
Yvette pursed her lips, tears welling up in her eyes as she choked with tears.
What about me? Don't you care about me? Could you have transcended if not for my pill? Would you have been able to meet her?
Kane's brow frowned and annoyance showed in his eyes.
I've saved you 10 times. Isn't that enough?
No, I'm never letting you go!
Yvette suddenly sprang to her feet in agitation, throwing herself into Kane's arms as she cried.
Because I'm not as beautiful as her. I know we're never getting back together, and I know I was saved by her Icon. But you have all the time in the world with her.
All I ask is that you just spend a few decades
With me. Can't you do that? How long do you think I'll live?
Kane turned silent for a long while, his annoyance fading from his eyes as he hugged Ira back. Perhaps convinced, he gently spoke in a quiet voice.
All right. I'll stay with you.
Crack. I unwittingly broke a branch beneath my foot, and Kane turned to frown at me almost at a split second. I promptly hid behind a tree, my still bleeding heart pounding loudly. However, Kane's eyes turned cool as ice, as he chanted an incantation and launched a blue flash at me. I met his gaze for a split second before I dodged the flash, slipping and falling in a puddle of mud. I could hear Yvette asking gingerly, "Who was that?" Seemingly calmed down, Kane's voice was tender.
Nothing. Just some white-haired hag. Most likely another mortal.
My heart sank to the abyss, as I realized he didn't recognize me. With that, I left to the Asphodela Grove, the forsaken border where the mortal realm met the underworld. It took me a day to find an abandoned hut, where I lay and waited for my death. I could tell that it would collapse soon, which hopefully would bury me. Who knows, I might grow again if the heavens took pity on me. Just a couple of days spent flat on my back, however, I felt the air stirring. While I was just feeling puzzled, a wounded underwell attendant barged in. His robes were black embroidered with golden threads, and his long hair was unbound. He had the air of virtue, but there were specks of blood on it despite his noble appearance, and if not for the dark lines that could vaguely be seen between his brows, I would have mistaken him for a swordsman. As our eyes met, I remained silent as his eyes lit up, and he exclaimed in greed and surprise,
A wisteria.
Before I could answer, he pressed urgently.
Wait, are you dying?
I followed his gaze as he looked downwards on my chest and said quietly,
Yeah, can't help you there. All 10 drops of my icon were taken.
His gaze dimming in disappointment, the underworld attendant clutched his wounded abdomen and sat in a corner.
Who could be so greedy?
He asked, seemingly trying to start a conversation out of nothing.
Stealing all 10 drops at once? They should be keeping you healthy so that you can regrow a drop before taking it again.
Not at once. It was 10 times.
The underworld attendant's expression stiffened, sympathy showing in his eyes.
That's cruel. A demon?
I shook my head.
No, my husband.
He turned silent, while something occurred to me. Pulling a pouch out of my sleeve, I walked up to the underworld attendant and poured a mess of pills and mystic items, telling him,
I'll be dead soon. No use keeping these around. Check if there's anything that could save your life, and use it.
He stared at me as if I was mad.
You're helping me? I was going to take your eye green.
Before I could speak, protest.
A bleeding heart, too. Shouldn't be surprised.
Not inclined to argue, I dropped the pouch and was going to lie down again when he called out to me.
Hey, do you want to live?
I paused, and he continued before I could turn.
Why don't I help you with your revenge?
The Underhill attendant introduced as himself Xerophius, and he told me that his master, Hades, would definitely save me. Uninterested, I shook my head.
Don't bother. There's no point in living.
You don't want revenge? After what your husband did to you?
Once again, he continued before I could speak.
You're such a fool. Listen, let me Rugenora and we can go to my boss in 6 months.
He always appeared to get ahead of himself, not bother to wait for others to speak, and always stayed on his own tangent. Annoyed, I decided to ignore him as he picked several pills from my pouch and took them. Surprisingly, he put everything else into the pouch and threw it back to me.
There. You could at least have something to bury yourself with. Don't give off everything to others in a hurry.
And with that, we stayed in that hut for the next 6 months, with him healing day by day. I was aging and withering in comparison, and by the time Xerius fully recovered, my face was riddled with wrinkles and I couldn't even walk. One day he finally sat up and stretched his back, and stared blindly at me for mockery, only for him to reach hinching my wrinkled cheek and sighing in disappointment.
How did you age so quickly?
Don't tell me you didn't take a single potion from your own pouch?
He then took my hand with a mysterious grin.
Come on. I'll take you to my master. He will save your life.
I didn't have the strength to resist, and allowed him to pull me along. It was a slow walk, but he patiently stayed on my pace. Clearly in a great mood, he elaborated on how amazing his master was, and how many bladesmen he had slain, while I was left wondering why I needed to be told. After all, everyone knew who Hades was. Still, I was too weary in heart and spirit to humor him, and allowed him to drone on while I listened. I had no idea how long we walked, until I abruptly stopped. Turning towards me, Xerxes asked,
What's wrong? We're already walking very slow, and now we're stopping.
I couldn't respond as I froze, staring straight ahead. Xerxes followed my gaze to find a man standing nearby, his gaze fixed on me too. His clothes were whiter than snow, and the eyes on his pale, handsome face showed shock and disbelief as he studied me twice. After a long while, Cain rasped,
Crystal, why? Why do you look like you're dying?
Be that as it may, Cain couldn't finish his sentence, as tears welled in his eyes, his heart clearly aching. He walked towards me, his steps somber as he muttered,
What are you doing here? Let's go back together.
Picking his ears, he asked noncurrently,
So you're her husband? Cain Lebret, was it?
It was only then that Cain noticed the man standing beside me, his dark eyes like a dangerous abyssus just then. He frowned, his tone icy.
Leaven, this is none of your business.
He started to reach towards me again, but I stepped backward once, while Xanacius smacked his hand off.
You ingrate. You almost killed your wife after stoling her Aegis 10 times.
And you have the cheek to suddenly just show up? I was going to treat her and let her take her revenge herself, but I guess I could kill you right now, since you showed your face.
A black sword materialized in Xerxes' hand right then, his killing intent suddenly palpable.
Cain glowered for a moment, but soon ignored him and turned towards me, speaking as if pained.
I really didn't know that was the last drop, Crystal. Let's just go back together. We'll confer with my master and find a solution. It's so obvious that the underworld attendant means harm. Don't follow him.
So what if he did? I've lost all value to the court, and I'm going to die anyway, I said quietly, my face expressionless. Cain ignored that and reached out, grabbing my hand. His hand twitched for a moment, and conflict flared in his eyes, but he said stubbornly,
Just come with me. I'll definitely save you.
I was already weak, and almost stumbled as he pulled me. Before Cain could help me up, Xerius' sword flashed, streaking towards him and forcing him to let go.
Truly, you bladesmen are only good for your looks. Why don't you consider why she was here in the first place? Or why did this happen to her?
You could have saved her long ago if you wanted to. Why would you wait until now instead? Don't you dare try to drive a wedge between us! Crystal is my wife! What else is she going to do? Go to the Underheld with you!
No longer arguing, Cain spread his palm and summoned his sword. It glowed with the moon's radiance as it landed steadily in his grasp. The air around it was chilling, its cool gleam illuminating Cain's visage with ephemeral beauty. My fingers had felt its touch countless times. It was as cold and as distant as Cain himself. And now, he raised it and swung toward Xerxes with a tenth of strength, launching shock. While Xerxes was fine, I was sent flying. Right now, I was basically 100-year-old mortal as I slammed violently into the ground. I couldn't push myself up at all. Xerxes promptly stopped fighting and ran towards me, helping me up in concern.
Are you all right?
He cried anxiously.
It's my fault. I shouldn't have started fighting.
Cain had turned pale too, putting away his sword as he ran towards me.
Are you all right? I didn't mean to...
Xerius raised his sword at him, stopping him as he spoke with a tone colder than I had ever heard.
Can't you stay away from her already? All you ever do is hurt her.
Cain's eyes widened as he stood there awkwardly, not sure if he should walk up or back off. I closed my eyes, coughing blood as I rasped in my frailest voice.
Please, could you just let me go?
No longer able to hold on, I started to lose consciousness. However, just as my eyes started to close, I saw Cain reach toward. Before he could reach me, however, Xerneas had picked me up. This time he turned into a puff of black smoke, rapidly streaking towards the Underhill.
Just wait, Crystal. I'll definitely save you.
Once Xeres took me to the underworld, Hades restored me to my consciousness with just a wave of his hand. It was only then that I was told that when Xeres meant he would save me, he also meant another century's worth of servitude to Hades. I also learned that he was a demigod in the first place, and had no place in the world. It was Hades who had changed the very essence of Xerxes' being, and he became an underworld attendant who served as his sword for 3 centuries. According to Xerxes, Hades didn't lack followers, but loyal followers like Xerxes were rare. It hadn't been easy to serve Hades for 3 centuries, but he had the misfortune to run into me, and now had to serve another century for no good reason. I watched as Hades' myriad colors banner flapped violently overhead, a sight that left me restless right away. On the other hand, Hades merely glanced at me and knew.
She needs a new heart, or there's no saving her.
Xereus spoke up almost instantly.
I can give her mine!
Hades looked down upon us, laughing cynically.
We can't. Only the immortals can switch their hearts for the wisteria.
His right-hand man raised a brow and said without hesitation,
That's easy. Just kill an immortal.
Hades shook his head and breathed words that left me despairing.
It must be given willingly.
Xereus was silent this time. Was there any immortal who would willingly give up their heart? Hades was certainly right, as I was really beyond saving. But while I remained unaffected, as this was only to be expected, Xerxes was clearly restless. His cheeks were clenched as he pursed his thin lips, the air around turning cold as if he could start a massacre the next instant. We only knew each other for 6 months. While I was perplexed as to why he was overreacting, Hades suddenly spoke.
It's impossible to save her, but keeping her alive for another century will be easy.
Then he turned towards me.
Do you want to live, girlie?
Who doesn't? I was born with the mission to revitalize the Wisteria clan, only to be at death's door without doing anything. It was certainly frustrating. And 100 years was merely a blink of an eye for people like us. But as long as we lived, there would be hope. I could feel Xeris' burning gaze on my cheek as I looked up solemnly at Hades. After a second, I tamely went down on my knees. I want to live, my lord. As we left the throne room, Xereus sighed unhappily as he apologized.
I promised to save you, but only to extend your life by 100 years. Sorry.
I found his reaction funny. I had already recovered to my youthful appearance, regained half of my spiritual power, and every fiber of my being felt a huge sense of relief. It's not your fault.
I told him quietly. I'm already satisfied you helped me live another 100 years. And don't worry, I'll keep you a company in the 100 years you pleaded to Hades.
Suddenly, a man appeared before us without warning, startling me for an instant. It was Cain once again, dressed in stark white.
Delight showed on his face as he studied me, and he started to reach out to me.
You're back, Crystal.
Struck squarely in the hand, Cain merely scowled. He continued reaching towards me as if he felt no pain, however, and eventually caught my hand.
Come with me, Crystal. I have something to say to you.
I never moved, and eventually took off his hand. What more is there to say between us? Cain's expression stiffened, while pain soon reeled on his visage.
That day, I really didn't know it was your last drop of Icon. I wouldn't have taken it if I had known.
My tone was flat and devoid of emotion. I told you, but you didn't believe me. He scowled, his lips so much they turned pale.
It's my fault. I've wronged you,
he said, and reached toward me again.
Just give me a chance to make it up.
Smack. This time, it was Xereus who knocked his hand away, snodding in define.
You deceived Crystal's bleeding heart, and hurt her repeatedly. Isn't that enough?
Cain glowered, narrowing his eyes dangerously at Zanus right then.
It's not up to you to decide what's right or wrong, underhurled attendant. This is between us, husband and wife.
Xerxes raised a brow, not backing down.
Is that so? It was phone about then. Ein Belufka's downsaver. So Satrith here. If you didn't tell me otherwise, I would have thought you were married to that mortal named Javent.
Kane's knuckles balled, but in the end, he felt too guilty to speak when Yidit was mentioned. And while Kane was silent, I took Xerxes by the hand and left, saying, Hades said my body requires constant meditation or it could decay. You mentioned a nice place to do that. Let's go. Kane didn't argue and allowed Xerxes to take me away. Soon, Xerxes led me to a cave, pausing and said quietly,
I usually train here. Most people won't be able to find it. Guess you're in luck.
He patted my head endearingly like one would a pet.
Meditate on your own, for now. There's something I need to talk to Hades about. I'll be right back.
I nodded and entered the cave alone. Even as I sat down, I felt the airflow around me, quickening, and it was dead silent inside. It was indeed a good place, as Xerxes had said. After an hour or so, I suddenly heard footsteps. Keeping my eyes closed, I asked non-accordly, back so soon? Hearing no response, I sensed danger and quickly opened my eyes to find Kane standing in front of me. As soon our eyes met, he raised his hand and breathed an incantation, and I felt my body go limp before pressing. I was no longer in the cave when I eventually recovered. Kane had taken me to who knows where, and he was on top of me as I opened my eyes. Our surroundings were vast and silent, seemingly a void, as if within a dimensional item. It was only then that I realized that Kane held me in his arms, and he would glance at me from time to time. His gaze was endlessly dark, as if to record the sighs. I felt no strength, though I couldn't help chuckling coolly. That was when he caressed my cheek, a lethal tenderness, just like the dagger in my chest on our wedding night. Or what? You want a sacred union now? I snot. Are you really that disgusting, Kane?
He kept his eyes fixed on me as if he didn't understand my words, his gaze only turning more determined.
He then raised his hand, and the dagger that almost took my life material-sized. It was the simplest type of dagger, one that could be bought with a few bronze coins that Yvette had given to him. However, because it was soaked in my Ykrit 10 times, that ordinary dagger was gleaming in fluorescent radiance, as if it was not of the mortal realm. I chucked coolly once again, and was ready for the moment. My eyes abruptly widened as I watched Kane. I realized right then what he was up to, and he did it exceedingly slowly, to not hurt his own heart, shielding his heart. In 30 minutes, his temple veins were bulging in exertion. His face was as pale as a sheet, and he was barely standing. Moments later, Kane kissed me on the lips, leaving a sweet taste before aiming his dagger squarely on my chest. I thought the sweet taste was yet another mystic item, but it was just plain honey. His hands were shaking as he was afraid to look me in the eye, the bloody cavity on his chest heaving as he rasped feebly.
Just hold on, Crystal.
I had been stabbed in the chest 10 times, and I was used to it this time. Kane moved quickly and steadily cut through my sure blood. Soon, he chanted an incantation which protected both hearts and swapped their places. When his heart entered my chest, my whole body shuddered, and my head suddenly felt clear. As my chest rapidly closed itself, I suddenly realized that things I didn't understand before were abruptly clear. Beside me, Kane put my bleeding heart that was beating relatively slowly into his chest. With that done, he dropped limply to the floor, not having even the strength to stand. But now that we had swapped hearts, he would have only 100 years to live, while I would be immortal. Around us, the void seemed to expand into boundless darkness, while the spiritual power in my body reiterated at a miraculous rate. As I rose to my feet, Kane caught my sleeve and asked with a shivering voice,
Do you still hate me?
I never looked back, only leaving my voice. The Wisteria clan will no longer return because of you. You have my eternal spite, Kane Lieber. I immediately descended upon the mortal realm once I recovered. After all, as Cain's heart beat steadily within me, I had come to a sudden realization. Why would a mortal like Yfelt need my icon 10 times? Either way, I certainly would like to see if my icon was really useful. Outside the fence, I gently opened the door that was left abalm. Yvette was sewing something, and looked up blankly when she heard me. Soon, she smiled.
Oh, it's you. You know me.
I asked, impassive.
Cain told me so much about you.
She never stopped sewing, only glancing at me once before turning away.
I thought you were near death. My lips curled into a smile, as I could feel the malice in her words. I was going to. But Cain gave me his heart.
Yvette flinched, her needle plunging into her fingertips and dyeing it red blood. Her face turned pale, and she growled through her teeth.
He really loves you, doesn't he?
I remained impassive, but my tone were slightly cold. We're husband and wife. Who would he love if not me? Vedette wheeled on me, snorting icily. What would you know? Cain and I would have been fine. No one would have come between us, if not for you. All I wanted was for us to live through this life, and you two could do whatever you want after. But you can't even manage something so easy for me! Husband stealers like you would be destroyed in our world! Pausing, she then snarled viciously. I lowered my gaze, chuckling to myself before looking up with a murderous glare. It's this husband stealers who saved your life 10 times, and almost died for it. I had been a fool before, foolishly allowing Cain to take my blood as he wanted. It's only after I had a new heart that I realized you'd never needed that much blood, it's nothing but a ploy. So that you could see Cain again. He would stay with me for a while. During the first few times I asked for blood, she sobbed. He would never mention you at all. But later on, he always seemed to be in a hurry, often reminding me that you're waiting for him. But what about me? Don't I matter? What about the immortal potion that I gave him? I racked her right then. I guess you're just crazy. Yvette's tears stopped right then, and she clenched her fists. Don't force your own sentiment on others. You may genuinely love Cain, but what about me? You are just a childhood sweet to him, and not his wife, and you accuse me of stealing your husband. He would have married you if he loved you. And I wouldn't have been here at all. For my part, I wasn't bothered to argue further. Holding out my palm, I threatened her. Last chance. Hand over my icon. Yvette kept grinning her teeth, wiping her tears defiantly as she snapped, "No, I won't! Kill me if you dare!" As soon as she finished that last syllable, purple light shone around me. My sword shot through the air, and suddenly the skies were covered in dark clouds as lightning cracked. Bloodlust filled the cottage, and Idara looked on in horror as I rose to the air. Then, my single sword multiplied to 1,000, each aimed squarely at her. Did you think I wouldn't dare? Killing a moral really wouldn't take this much of an effort. But everything about Yella was so deplorable that an easy death was letting her off easy. Finally, having had enough, I rushed towards her when a white figure appeared between us. Cain's frailty was written all over his face, but he stood in my way, pleading.
I'm begging you, Crystal. Don't—
With a high kick, I sent him crashing down into a puddle of mud. Yetta promptly rushed to his side, bawling hysterically.
Why? Why would you save me repeatedly? Don't you love me at all?
Cain closed his eyes as blood seeped from his mouth, his voice solemn and determined despite the deafening thunder.
Ygritte, I love Crystal. All I feel towards you is gratitude. Get over me. Free yourself and Crystal.
Yvette was left in disbelief as Cain put his regrets to words and bowed so hard her face contorted. She seemed to age a decade, as if the single thread that held her together had snapped. As I had enough of the drama and brought my sword to bear, she sighed in resignation.
Your icon has no use to me anyway. You can have it back.
She took out a small bottle from her pocket, and it flew to me as I beckoned. As it landed steadily on my palm, Cain stared blankly eyesly at it before towards Ifer in disbelief.
You were lying to me.
He asked, his face pale and his voice shaking in realization.
You were never in trouble, but I carved open Crystal 10 times!
Yvette was silent, but eventually glanced at me with an unrepentant glare.
Stealing my man is...
Shung. Yvette stopped before she could finish. After all, he had stopped me as I raised my... Kane watched in shock as it happened, and it took him a while to realize that Yvette had been killed right before his eyes. On the other hand, I opened the bottle and extracted the Iric, which flew straight into my heart with a delightful sensation. I never felt this good, and I could feel my powers rising to a new level. It took him considerable effort to push himself up and shuffle towards me. Holding my gaze, he reached out towards me, but paused midway, and it eventually withdrew his hand.
If only I had known she lied to me.
Either way, I'm keeping your heart. I cut him short, my visage impassive but my tone filled with disdain. My bleeding heart had shackled me, and I used to think the world of you. Now, you're simply unremarkable.
Kane's expression stiffened, his eyes welling up with tears and pain, and he couldn't manage a word.
Still, I continued coolly. With our hearts swapped and my icon recovered, you only have 100 years left to live. And now we owe each other nothing. I'm not going to kill you either. Just do whatever you want. But if you bother me again, I'd have no choice but to reunite you with Everett. Clutching his chest in pain, Kane's brow creased as he coughed a mouthful of blood. I swung my sword, carving a rift through the ground and finished. We are now no more than strangers. Never cross that line again. Xerxes was stricken with worry by the time I returned to the underworld, and he couldn't resist pulling me into his arms as soon as he saw me.
And here I thought you had no conscience and bailed on me.
He exclaimed, his voice shaking. I giggled, my voice unwittingly tender. Where would I run? I still owe you 100 years. Xerxes' arms tightened around me right then as if to fuse me into himself. He only released me after a long while, studying me carefully from head to toe, before asking in curiosity,
Why do you feel different?
As per tradition, he didn't wait for me to answer and exclaimed in delight.
You changed hearts? And you regained your iron too?
I felt a burning sensation in my chest as I flushed up to my cheeks. Embarrassed, I scratched behind my red-hot ears as I asked softly, How does one get married in the Underheld? As I watched Xerxes freeze up, his eyes sparkling but troubled, I frowned in displeasure. What? Are you refusing to marry me? Let me give it to you straight. I intend to revitalize the Wisteria Clyde. And my mom told me to have 10 kids at least. If you refuse, I will just get someone else. I started to turn and leave when Xerxes caught my arm, and I felt the world spinning for a moment before he pulled me into his arms. Our heartbeats seemed to intertwine, and were gaining in speed and intensity. Then, Xerxes breathed beside my ear, his voice solemn yet determined.
Let's get married tomorrow. You're not getting away from me now. 10 kids. I'll remember that.